Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. Luo Feng nodded. Master, how much do you estimate it would cost to buy some materials for the 24 forms life form? This life form with the primordial bloodline is extremely valuable, a single portion of a refined complete bloodline. For a Kuching God King exchange in the Flame Wind ancient country, it requires 1 billion merit points, Emperor Chu said. As for a small amount of materials, they generally don't sell in small quantities. Even Thunder ancient country would not sell them in pieces. Luo Feng said, I do not need to refine a complete bloodline, what I need is to comprehend the life form. A partial corpse would be enough for me, is that possible? A complete corpse can be refined into 3 to 5 portions of complete bloodlines, depending on the refining capability, Emperor Chu said. If you do not need to refine, they can directly sell you 1/3 of a corpse, saving the cost of refining as well. Luo Feng understood. 1/3 of a corpse of a primordial bloodline creature with the 24 forms life form costs 1 billion merit points. For beings like the Emperor of Tianquan and the Master of the Shi Kingdom, amassing treasures to gather 1 billion merit points is also extremely difficult. Because with each adventure, it's uncertain when one might fail, and if the true body dies, there would be a considerable loss. 1 billion merit points is too high. It's the highest exchange level for a Kuching God King, Emperor Chu said. In Thunder ancient country, you only need 600 million merit points, which is much cheaper. I understand, Luo Feng nodded and smiled. It's all very far from me, I can't afford them for now. These materials were very important to Luo Feng. Without these materials, Luo Feng could only construct the 24 forms life form with divine power, and the power would be much less. But if he got the materials and peered into their essence, changing into them with the formless and intangible, he himself could have the physical body of a God King second realm primordial bloodline creature. Those primordial bloodline creatures did not utilize their physical potential fully. In Luo Feng's hands, who clearly comprehended the essence of physical life forms, he could naturally unleash their full potential. Even if his physical body's strength was slightly inferior to an ultimate realm life form, the difference would not be much. I haven't even comprehended the first of my 24 forms yet, so there's no hurry. Luo Feng also had patience. The essence must be clearly comprehended to transform with formless and intangible. Moreover, formless and intangible had one limitation. When Luo Feng became a godly king and his body merged with the supreme rules, he realized that formless and intangible could only transform matter born within the source world. If it went beyond the range of the supreme rules, formless and intangible could not change. And these primordial bloodline creatures were indeed native creatures of the land of origin, bred and cultivated from true primordial life bloodlines by the 2 ancient countries through successive dilutions over generations. Here are 2 vials of 5-colored treasure medicine, take good care of them. Suddenly, Emperor Chu stretched out his hand, and 2 black bottles appeared with swirling liquid within. Treasures worth 20 million merit points. I haven't even prepared. Luo Feng was surprised at his master's swift action. Whenever you are ready, just give them to me, Emperor Chu said indifferently. Luo Feng immediately took them. With your many avatars, a reminder, Emperor Chu said, the 5-colored treasure medicine must be consumed by your true body. If a weak avatar takes it, then the effects of the medicine will only influence that weak avatar. I understand, Luo Feng nodded. You've been a godly king for so long now. Haven't you claimed that extermination of 72 blades and 8 tribulations life form God King's second realm inheritance? Emperor Chu asked, because this was his promised gift to Luo Feng. Once Luo Feng claimed it, the merit points would be automatically deducted from Emperor Chu. Emperor Chu naturally knew that Luo Feng had not yet claimed the inheritance. I know you went to infinite space, because in the infinite space treasure vault, you saw better special grade inheritances, and even perfect inheritances. So you were not in a hurry for extermination of 72 blades, and 8 tribulations life form. Emperor Chu shook his head, but an inheritance isn't necessarily better, because it's higher class. The higher class ones are harder to cultivate. More importantly, the higher the class of the inheritance, the more reward points they cost in the infinite space treasure vault. To exchange for a first realm special grade inheritance as a godly king is possible, but the second realm section would be around 3,000 reward points, and the ultimate realm would require about 60,000 reward points. It's very difficult to earn reward points in the infinite space. Even if you open up a new great Tao that reaches the first realm of godly king, you are only rewarded with 10,000 reward points. Emperor Chu said with emotion. The ultimate realm section of a special grade inheritance can be seen, but how many can afford to exchange for it? Luo Feng immediately understood a lot of information. Opening a branch of the Great Tao, 10,000 reward points. As an identity with the primal chaos realm and spiritual will reaching the ultimate realm of godly king, he, too, had received 10,000 reward points. But just to exchange for an ultimate realm section of a special grade inheritance needs about 60,000 reward points. S.E.A. the novelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Upper class inheritance is more accessible to obtain, Emperor Chu said. At least it's a clear path to the ultimate realm. Disciple understands. I will go claim the 2 inheritances right away, Luo Feng responded. That day, Luo Feng first went to the inheritance palace to claim that extermination of 72 blades and 8 tribulations life form God King's second realm sections, and also delivered treasures worth 20 million merit points to his master. Emperor Chu immediately recognized that these treasures came from the dream domain, and he smiled without saying anything. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In the quiet room of the city owner's mansion in Huyang City. Inside the Star Tower. 5-colored treasure medicine. Luo Feng's perfect divine body true body looked at the black bottle in front of him. His perfect divine body had long since recovered to its full state, and he was prepared to consume the treasure medicine with the perfect divine body. Come, let's see just how powerful this treasure medicine made from the heart of a sector beast above godly king level is. Luo Feng pulled the cork, pouring it directly into his mouth. Swoosh. When the liquid swelled out from the black bottle, it radiated 5-color radiance, and even faintly revealed the phantom of a sector beast, a figure that had a 70% resemblance to Morosa's true body. The treasure medicine liquid all entered his throat. As soon as it entered his throat, Luo Feng's face changed. Boom, boom, boom tilde tilde tilde. As if a vast universe had exploded within him, an endless and terrifying might instantly swept through his body and even merged into his soul. Luo Feng was immensely shaken. On his path of cultivation, he seldom relied on external substances, and he had never used anything at the level of the 5-colored treasure medicine. At this moment, Luo Feng understood. This 5-colored treasure medicine had been well worth the purchase. I made the right choice, this treasure medicine was the right purchase. I am different now. Luo Feng could clearly feel a mysterious network of veins appearing inside his perfect divine body. This network seemed to be a new framework, transforming his perfect divine body. While his strength and speed had only increased by about 50 to 60%, it was still far from the effects experienced by a world life form. However, now that this new layer of veins was present within his perfect divine body, Luo Feng felt as if he himself had changed. Boom tilde tilde tilde, with a gentle wave of his hand, countless law secret patterns emerged, and the essence of the great Tao of destruction origin flowed naturally with his movements. This world is too filthy, and the source world too weary, it needs a thorough cleansing. At this moment, Luo Feng could even sense an instinctual desire. A desire to cleanse the source world thoroughly. There were so many weak life forms, the greater their number, the less opportunity these weaker beings had to grow. By significantly reducing their numbers, weak life forms would have access to more abundant resources and nourishment from heaven and earth, becoming more elite and outstanding. What am I thinking? Luo Feng's spiritual will was ultimately strong, and he immediately sensed something was amiss. My soul has also been affected by the power of the 5-colored treasure medicine. Luo Feng noticed a mysterious rune structure within his soul, maintained by the power of the 5-colored treasure medicine. This made Luo Feng's soul perfectly align with the great Tao of destruction origin, so that every motion naturally manipulated the mysteries of destruction. From my physical body to my soul, everything has become perfectly aligned with the great Tao of destruction origin, even giving me the instinct to cleanse the world. However, as long as the will is strong enough, these instincts can still be suppressed, Luo Feng thought. At this moment, Luo Feng also understood why sector beasts caused calamities and even destroyed all living beings. Sector beasts were born from the great Tao of destruction origin. Compared to Luo Feng's current state, they were much more in harmony, for they had long since had cleansing the world ingrained in their souls. Only through soul enslavement could the instincts of sector beasts be suppressed. I'm now in a weakened state akin to a sector beast. Luo Feng stopped pondering and started to focus on cultivation. Because he could feel that both the vein network within his physical body and the rune structure within his soul were maintained by the power of the five-colored treasure medicine. Once it ended, this state would also come to an end. Luo Feng first contemplated the secret techniques in the special grade inheritance, chaotic whole beast body, of which he had already deduced 3 strikes. The first strike took the longest time to understand, and because of it, Luo Feng had comprehended all 6 branches of the path of destruction. The second and third strikes came much quicker. Isn't it quite simple? With the foundation of the first 3 strikes, Luo Feng gave it some thought, and the 4th, 5th, and 6th strikes were all deduced in a moment, without any obstacles. My past understanding of the great Tao of destruction origin was too naive. Destruction is not just destruction, it is also a form of cleansing, a rebirth. Luo Feng's perspective on the great Tao of destruction origin had changed, and with this shift in perspective, the difficulty of comprehension instantly decreased. Cleansing the world, clearing all things. Just annihilate these impurities. Then I should try to deduce the strongest secret technique, world unification, that can be understood at the first realm of Godly King, as recorded in the special grade inheritance, chaotic whole beast body. Luo Feng immediately decided. For the great Tao of life origin, Luo Feng had always been contemplating the 24 forms. For the great Tao of destruction origin, Luo Feng decided to deduce world unification. World unification. Luo Feng immersed himself in study, and a flood of insights surged forth. Luo Feng soon encountered various obstacles, but his current state was exceptional, and he kept breaking through the hurdles. The world unification secret method requires first establishing a foundation, then defining the 6 paths. Afterwards, with the perfect coordination of the 6 paths, everything can be brought to unity. Luo Feng wrestled with the complex secret technique, gradually grasping the essence of the entire method. Once he understood the essence, Luo Feng addressed the problems one by one and began to forge the foundation. Time passed, and Luo Feng quietly cultured himself, disengaging from the conflicts of the land of origin, cherishing each day sustained by the 5-colored treasure medicine. Before long, 3 eons had passed. Inside the Star Tower. The power of the 5-colored treasure medicine finally ran out, and the network within Luo Feng's perfect divine body and the rune structure in his soul collapsed in an instant. Luo Feng immediately felt a sharp estrangement from the great Tao of destruction origin, as the sense of being one with it was lost. Gone? Luo Feng was somewhat lost and disappointed. Having grown accustomed to the favor of the great Tao, returning to his previous level of perception was naturally uncomfortable. In these 3 eons, my comprehension of the great Tao of destruction origin has truly undergone a complete transformation. Luo Feng reflected on the gains of those 3 eons, realizing the tremendous strides he had made. In the outer layer of the dream realm, one of the spaces was enveloped by howling winds, with countless mountains and rocks standing tall. One large rock, subjected to the wind's erosion for a long stretch of time, suddenly. The large rock moved, naturally transforming into a figure with black scales and golden horns, which was none other than one of Luo Feng's 3 main avatars that occupied the outer layer of the dream realm. While the perfect divine body completely immersed itself in comprehending the great Tao of destruction origin, Luo Feng's other avatars were almost in a state of slumber. The cultivation with the 5-colored treasure medicine is over. It's time to properly cultivate the spiritual will. Luo Feng's one avatar quietly left and swiftly proceeded on its journey. While dividing other avatars for reconnaissance, Luo Feng quickly arrived at the deep layers of the dream realm. The deep layers of the dream realm. Luo Feng could see a space ahead, even more dim and with faint thunder flashing. Whoosh, Luo Feng carefully flew into it. Indeed, it's the deep layers of the dream realm. Luo Feng felt a terrifying pressure acting upon his spirit, with layers upon layers of heart pressure enveloping him, seemingly endless, exhausting Luo Feng considerably. The ancient beings from the land of origin form teams, yet they seldom venture into the deep layers of the dream realm. Luo Feng was well aware of this. Only wills at the God King ultimate realm could maintain lucidity here, and most of the ancient beings also cultivated the primordial bloodline, needing to divert their attention to suppress the residual will within their bloodlines. So, to form a team where every member could traverse the deep layers of the dream realm. That was exceedingly difficult. For an individual to sneak into the deep layers of the dream realm, dealing with more powerful dream realm creatures, becomes very difficult. One of Luo Feng's avatars encountered 3 flame exotic beasts, each with a black body. Merely judging by their aura, each could rival the stone monster leader. One of the flame exotic beasts noticed Luo Feng and immediately whooshed into a clump of black flames, enveloping him. Escape. Luo Feng's one avatar immediately divided again into 10 smaller ones, scattering and fleeing. Phut. Soon, one of the avatars was trapped by the black flames, burned for a moment, and eventually was extinguished. The deep layers of the dream realm, the influence on the spiritual will is even greater, and the dream realm creatures are even more terrifying. But the treasures here are even more precious. Only, there are very few who have the capability to come here and harvest these treasures, Luo Feng thought to himself. Sir the novel_fire.et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Even emperors and monarchs, for the most part, needed to divert their attention to suppress the will of the bloodline, and not many were qualified to come here. Too dangerous. Luo Feng divided many avatars and briefly explored a portion of this deep dream realm space. With my current strength, I can't even grab a single treasure. In the middle layers of the dream realm, Luo Feng could still harvest treasures from a limited number of regions based on his abilities. The deep layers of the dream realm. A few random creatures could rival the teams from the reincarnation tower. Even some terrifying dream realm species, any true body of an emperor or monarch daring to enter might not be able to escape. These dream realm creatures all contain a trace of will but possess no soul. Luo Feng was also curious. Without souls, most dream realm creatures remained within their territories. Only a few would leave their domain due to special reasons, yet they could never leave this dream realm space. Over time, the dream realm space would change, dream realm creatures would perish, and new terrifying dream realm creatures would emerge. Dream realm, is it truly just a dream? Luo Feng pondered. Some powerhouses in the land of origin believed that the dream realm was merely a dream. A dream created by Yuan. Yet others objected, after all, they could enter with their true body and the wonders of heaven and earth they harvested could be used normally in the outside world. It was hard to explain with just a dream. This also made many powerhouses further revere Yuan. Let's do it here. After exploring the surrounding area, Luo Feng chose a secluded spot on the mountainside of a desolate mountain, sat down cross-legged, and naturally turned into an inert stone. Luo Feng then started to cultivate the Great Destruction Heart refining technique. In the deep layer of the dream realm, since Luo Feng was not seizing any treasures, and not provoking any dream realm creatures, merely cultivating here was quite safe. Rumble tilde tilde tilde, the pressure of the dream realm on the spiritual will was relentless and endless. And under this terrifying pressure, Luo Feng continued to sustain the Great Destruction Heart refining technique, causing an immediate surge in the pressure on his spiritual will. Hiss. Taking the 5-colored treasure medicine, and the enhancement in comprehending the Great Tao of Destruction origin, made the Great Destruction Heart refining technique also evolve, increasing its might substantially. HMPH. In an instant, Luo Feng felt extreme pain, extreme torment. Increased potency of the Great Destruction Heart refining technique, harsher conditions in the deep layers of the dream realm, dual refinement, truly uncomfortable. Luo Feng found every moment excruciating as his spiritual will seemed to be crushed to pieces and then congealed again. The Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique, indeed painful. Like the 7 emotions of heart refining technique, which refines the heart with emotions, and is a relatively pleasant experience during cultivation. But the 7 emotions of heart refining technique cannot be sustained for long. The Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique shows ordinary results in a short time, but has the advantage of being sustainable over the long haul. To have obtained the Lai Yuan technique, and to learn the Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique within it, I'm already fortunate. Luo Feng endured silently, and in the process of tempering, gradually discovered the many unstable thoughts of his spirit, relentlessly eroded time and again. In this ongoing process of destruction refinement, the erosion by the deep spatial layers of the dream realm also continued ceaselessly, and unbeknownst to him, the influence of the dream realm's erosion grew deeper. About half an era into Luo Feng's cultivation in the deep layer of the dream realm, his increasingly tired spirit was completely eroded by the dream realm. In an instant, Luo Feng fell into a deep sleep. At that moment, all his avatars in the outside world, including those in infinite space, also fell into slumber. Woo 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 tilde tilde tilde. The piece of inert stone in the deep dream realm space became a complete stone. Luo Feng forgot who he was, as if he had turned into a massive creature flying through the air. What a mighty primordial life, accompanied by hearty laughter, a towering hand had already grabbed him. Luo Feng felt a fear emanating from the depths of his soul. He had no desire to resist, there was only fear and thoughts of escape. I must escape. Flee for my life. Ancestor, save me. A jumble of disordered thoughts. It seemed like Luo Feng had escaped that giant hand, but soon he was enveloped by a formation, and he escaped again. Another figure was in pursuit. This dream was twisted, as if he was constantly running, fleeing in terror. While asleep, Luo Feng lost control of himself and naturally stopped the Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique. His spiritual will had long reached the bottleneck limit of the godly king tier. Just under the mere deep layers of the dream domain, Luo Feng gradually began to awaken from the terrified flight in his dream. Am I dreaming? Luo Feng was astonished. Dreaming was such a distant concept for him. With his spiritual state, he should have perfectly mastered control over himself and not dream at all. I am Luo Feng. I am cultivating in the deep layers of the dream domain. Once Luo Feng became aware of his existence within the dream, he felt the dream start to shake and become unstable. This dream is interesting, stabilize it. Luo Feng tried to harmonize more with the dream. Because at this moment, the massive creature he had become was too vast, even more magnificent than the complete life origin Great Tao he had observed before, and it even carried a hint of the supreme rules. And the figures that seemed to chase after him from behind appeared even more terrifying than the entire source world. What is this? Luo Feng wanted to maintain the dream, but he eventually woke up. The longer he was awake, the more fragmented the dream became. Bang! Finally, the dream completely dissipated. In that space deep within the dream domain, on a barren mountain's mid-slope, a stubborn rock opened its eyes. I fell into a slumber, that dream just now, but Luo Feng found his memory of the dream to be very vague, only remembering that he had turned into a massive creature, only remembering that what chased him was terrifying. The appearance of the pursuer, Luo Feng could no longer recall. The methods they used, he also could not remember. How could I have such a dream? Luo Feng was somewhat puzzled. When other strong beings enter the dream domain, if they fall into slumber, it's very difficult for them to awaken. Either they rely on other strong beings to bring their true body out, or they have a lucky breakthrough in their spirit in the dream, but the odds of that are negligible. Luo Feng had consciously entered into spiritual cultivation here, which is what led to his slumber. But once asleep, he naturally stopped the Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique. Given the real strength of his spiritual will, it was easy for him to regain consciousness. Cultivating for half an era, indeed, I'm somewhat fatigued. Time to rest for a while. Luo Feng immediately left the deep layers of the dream domain silently, and returned to the outer layers. Within the primordial cosmos, that mysterious land, Luo Feng's divine power incarnation was observing the complete life origin great Tao before him. I didn't expect that in just 3 eras, with the help of the 5-colored treasure medicine, the accumulation of the great Tao of destruction origin would be comparable to the great Tao of life origin, Luo Feng thought. But once I use up the treasure medicine, the speed of cultivation will become very slow again. The path of life has the advantage of facing the great Tao directly, always ensuring a higher efficiency in cultivation. There are only 2 doses of the 5-colored treasure medicine, and the boundary beast blood talisman is even more precious. Even with the status of my master, I can only exchange for one, Luo Feng mused inwardly. The use of the boundary beast blood talisman must be even more prudent. Master Emperor Chu cultivated the great Tao of destruction origin, which is why he could exchange for one. It is possible that other emperors couldn't even make the exchange. As for Kuqing God King, they didn't have the qualifications to see it. Whether it's the 5-colored treasure medicine, or the boundary beast blood talisman, they must be used at critical moments. Understanding the great Tao, many of the superficial aspects are relatively easy to understand. Without using treasures, one could comprehend them over time. The real key things, the extremely difficult ones, might make one stuck for a long time. At such times, using a treasure is highly efficient. I'll take the 5-colored treasure medicine again in 30 eras, Luo Feng decided. The 5-colored treasure medicine is slightly less precious, after all, even a Kuqing God King can exchange for it. With some extra effort, he should still be able to obtain a few more doses. But the boundary beast blood talisman. Luo Feng wanted to save it for use during the 2nd realm of Godly King stage to better charge towards the ultimate realm. Life and destruction, indeed, are quite distinct. Luo Feng faced the great Tao of life and began to immerse himself in cultivation. Cultivation, after all, also requires a change of mind. If one hits a bottleneck in understanding destruction, try understanding life, then attempt life and destruction fusion, and then go back to comprehending destruction, the bottleneck might just loosen. Cultivation is about daily accumulation. In this way of cultivation, Luo Feng soon received a second invitation to action from Emperor Gui Shu. This video will end here.